Candidate Javier Bertucci is voting now in San Diego, a city in the Carabobo state. He also sent a message to his supporters last night. He said, "All Venezuela knows its candidate. People know that they are together in this and that we will continue to win. We are not the ones who retreat."
Me han dicho buena en los sectores populares. En los otros sectores, pues la asistencia no está siendo mucha. Tenemos fotos, tenemos reportes de otros centros electorales en la zona norte, donde la participación es baja.
¿Qué va a hacer ahorita? ¿Se va a dirigir al Centro Nacional Electoral?
Mira, me dirijo a nuestro comando de campaña en Caracas. Vamos a estar ahí para hacer la rueda de prensa correspondiente, hacer las denuncias. Tengo un equipo de abogados y de personas en el CNE.
And now our special coverage of the Venezuelan presidential election. We will be bringing you all the latest news throughout the day and into the night as results emerge. We're joined now by correspondent Ian Bruce, who's been covering the voting in Caracas. Good morning, Ian. How are things coming along in Venezuela? What is the latest update?
Hello, Steffi. Yes, well, 4 hours into voting now, and people are still turning out to vote here in Caracas. We're at the Fermin Toro voting center. Now, we saw very big queues early in the morning. That's very normal here in Venezuela. Now it's midday, the heat of the day is up, and people tend to go home a little bit. There's still a fair number of people here. This is where the process starts. I wanted to show you this. People arrive here, and they look on these sheets for the number of their ID number. So, con permiso, señor. Usted está buscando el número ahí, ¿verdad? You're looking for your number, yeah?
Sí, sí, el número, a ver, me corresponde la mesa 11.
Yeah, so they're looking, and that tells them they're at table number 11. Pero usted ya sabía dónde estaba.
Sí, sí.
Yeah, because of course this is just a check. Most people have already know which voting machine, which voting station they'll be at, because they've looked it up online. They come here, they come to these lists, and they do a final check to make it sure it's still there. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about this process with one of the international observers here, Manuel Bertoldi. He's from Argentina, from the Patria Grande movement. Manuel, thank you for joining us. Thanks. Just tell me briefly, what have you been doing this morning? What have you seen?
When we came, international observers from all around the world, and we saw that the election is running very good. All of the people came to the different votation center, very enthusiastic, and we hope that all the day the election is going to running well. We also have here Stephanie, that she is from the United States. She's another international observer, and she can tell how is for him.
Stephanie, thank
Hi.
you for joining us. So what's your impression of the voting process here?
Well, for one, the voting process here I think is very technologically advanced and runs very smoothly. And one of the things that really struck me is that what I learned yesterday is that in this election there's been a lot more polling places than in the previous election. They made an effort to increase the number of polling places. And for us coming from the United States, that's in stark contrast to the process that has been taking place in the United States, where a lot of polling places have been removed. There's a contrast between Obama's last election and the election when Trump got elected, that approximately 800 polling places were removed. So whereas here the access to voting rights and to making it easy for people to go to the polling places has been extended, that's the opposite of what the process has been in the United States.
So what about the actual voting process itself? It's quite peculiar for a particular process here in Venezuela, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's more technologically advanced, like I said, but it has this method through which the vote is very difficult for there to be an electoral fraud, because the vote there's basically like three proofs for the vote that you just cast. You cast it electronically, but you get a paper proof. It gets recorded electronically, but you also submit it through a paper ballot. And so, again, there's like a triple check to your vote.
So no hanging chads in Venezuela?
Yeah, no, there's no chance for hanging chads here in Venezuela.
Okay, thank you very much. And Manuel, a final thing. What about the spirit of people here? How do you find that?
I think that the people is enthusiastic to go to the different centers to vote, to strengthen the democracy. I think that we have to build that here in Venezuela,
It seems like we have lost the signal with Ian Bruce, but we will be right back with him. More stories now. 1 second, more stories now. Let's talk about President Maduro. He already voted. President Maduro voted and was the first one to vote. He spoke of the need to guarantee peace in the country. People began queuing for several hours to cast their vote. The election has been much anticipated, and much of the discussion has been about the innovations designed to make sure the election is transparent and fair. After casting his vote, President Nicolás Maduro gave a press conference in which he defended these elections as the best way to respond to external attacks against Venezuela's democracy. Maduro voted along with his wife and former president of the National Assembly, Cilia Flores.
This is a battle for our independence, for our sovereignty, our democracy, and for peace. Today is a historic day that no one should miss. I encourage those who haven't woken up yet to do it, to get ready along with their families, because today is the time for the big democratic family of Venezuela. 14,000 polling stations, 34,000 voting tables. Let's promote that everything goes peacefully. And I ask God for his blessings for Venezuela to have a day of peace, of freedom, and democracy.
I believe that today is a historic day, when we Venezuelans are going to give an example to the world about what sovereignty, independence, freedom, participation, and what democracy is. A truly democratic system we have in Venezuela, and we exercise it through our vote.
And opposition candidate Henry Falcón has also voted. Falcón cast his ballot in his hometown of Lara today. Falcón is President Maduro's closest competitor in the polls. He denounced what he called some irregularities in the voting.
We have received up to 350 reports on red points, where social security cards were being scanned. This goes against the agreements we signed to hold these elections. It's shameless. It's supposed to be points of assistance, but it's being used by the other party. There has not been response against this. We want the president of the Electoral Council to take measures.
Communications Minister Jorge Rodriguez is in a press conference, assured all of the agreements made with the opposition are being adhered to during the election.
Con respecto a los puntos tricolor,
in regards to the registration stations, the accord that was reached with the opposition, based on the agreement from the Dominican Republic, states that these stations can be placed 200 feet away from polling centers. In fact, we have stayed in touch with representatives from the National Electoral Council so as to be informed whenever a station may be breaking the agreement. But these cases have been few and far between. Just think that there are over 14,000 polling stations, and yet there's only mention of 2 cases that needed to be taken care of. And what we did in that case is immediately move the registration station to the required 200 feet.
Presidential candidate Reynaldo Quijada of the Popular Unity Party has voted in Aragua. Quijada is one of the 4 candidates in the election, but hasn't had the prominence of the other 3. The president of the National Assembly, Delcy Rodriguez, praised Venezuelans' will to vote. She said that's the only way to defend different views in a peaceful way.
Look at the people in the streets. It's only 6:34 a.m. and there's a big democratic celebration in Venezuela. The Venezuelan people want to and like to vote. Why? Well, to discuss their differences in a peaceful way. We say no bullets, no to violence. We want to consolidate peace and democracy.
Later on, the president of the National Assembly gave a press conference after casting her vote, where she encouraged Venezuelans to vote as a way of empowering the nation.
The Venezuelan electoral system is the best in the world. It has the greatest guarantees, transparency, and safety you can find across the world. Every vote expresses the wish of each Venezuelan citizen. Each vote expresses the right of self-determination, the right to decide by ourselves on the future of our people.
Voting isn't only taking place in Venezuela, but in embassies around the world. Embassies are tweeting pictures of citizens who turn out to cast their votes. From Switzerland to Hong Kong, voting is steady in Russia, where one woman says she traveled 1,700 kilometers to vote. In Austria, as many as 230 citizens are registered to vote.
Embassies are tweeting pictures of citizens who turned out to cast their vote. From Switzerland to Hong Kong, voting is steady. In Russia, one woman said she traveled 1,700 kilometers to vote. In Austria, as many as 230 citizens are registered to vote. Polls also opened in Argentina, where 2,300 Venezuelans are registered to vote in the Venezuelan embassy. Argentinian representatives from different parties headed there to give their support to the democratic process.
We support the Bolivarian process. We support the revolution. We stay together with the Venezuelan people because in these complicated days of fight, we have to support Latin America unity so we can move forward all together.
From Argentina, I would like to call Venezuelans to vote. We all have to vote. It's our civic right, a responsibility, and also a great opportunity. From Argentina, we look to our Latin American neighbors. Brazil with Lula, Mexico with AMLO, Venezuela with Maduro, and we trust Latin American people voting for our rights, for democracy, for peace, and against imperialism.
The Venezuelan community in China is exercising its right to vote in today's election. China has registered 144 Venezuelans to vote at the diplomatic headquarters of the Bolivarian Republic in Beijing. In addition to the capital, another electoral board is located at the consulate in Hong Kong, where 89 people were able to vote. The Chinese government respects international law and the principle of non-interference, permitting Venezuelans to exercise their right to vote.
Several voting centers were opened in the special administrative regime of Hong Kong and one in Beijing. Today we hope that you have all witnessed this great participation of Venezuelans living in Beijing who are registered to vote in the electoral registry. Here we are celebrating this electoral process in peace.
The important thing is that the electoral process in Venezuela has been carried out in a transparent manner. The electoral power has given all embassies and consulates the opportunity to say that voting is an undeniable right for all Venezuelans who are entering into the electoral system, so we can participate and demonstrate here in Beijing, China. The number of Venezuelans who have come out to participate here is impressive, and the process has taken place peacefully. And in addition to China, the election is also occurring peacefully in Venezuela.
Also in Spain, Venezuelan expats are casting their vote. At 8 o'clock local time, the 42 polling stations arranged in the cities of Madrid, Barcelona, Tenerife, Bilbao, and Vigo opened. However, in Canada, residents won't be able to vote as the government decided not to facilitate the electoral process, which is Venezuelan people's constitutional right. On Wednesday, the Canadian government gave notice to the government of Venezuela that they would not be allowed to hold voting. There were attempts to vote anyway, but they have been stopped.
From the Vatican, Pope Francis extended a prayer to Venezuela in his Sunday sermon.
I wish to dedicate a special thought to my beloved Venezuela. I ask the Holy Spirit to give all the Venezuelan people, governors and citizens alike, the wisdom to find a way of peace and unity.
Neighboring Brazil is watching very closely as Venezuelans head to the polls today to cast their ballots. Brazil's Campesino movement, the Landless Workers movement, MST, has been watching attentively. For more on this, we are speaking with Cassia Bechara of the MST's National Coordination. What do Brazilians make of these elections, and how closely has the MST been monitoring these elections?
Hi, Stephanie. We've been monitoring very closely. For us, Venezuela has been a symbol of resistance against the imperialist attacks in Latin America. And this election for Brazil, for the whole Latin America, and for Venezuela is not only a matter of who is in power, but what is at stake is a political project. A political project that is very important for the whole continent and the whole world.
Cassia, what makes these elections so important for the region, and do you see a connection between the attacks on this election and some other things that have been happening in Brazil, such as the coup against Dilma Rousseff and the imprisonment of former President Lula da Silva?
Sure. There has been a very strong attacks from the U.S. and imperialist powers against all progressive forces in Latin America. These new types of coup d'etat that we are calling institutional coup d'etat that happened in Brazil is what actually is the same thing in a different way what they are trying to do in Venezuela. Trying to undermine the elections, trying to undermine Maduro, trying to undermine the Bolivarian revolution by all means, especially using the media. That was exactly the same thing that happened in Brazil against former President Lula. So this is something that the whole Latin American continent must fight against the imperialist interventions in our countries. We need to fight for our sovereignties. What has happened in Brazil, what's happening in Venezuela, may happen in any other country in the continent.
Cassia, what has been the media coverage been on both processes?
The Brazilian media, mainstream media, is very pro-imperialist. So in Lula's case, for example, it was very, very determinant, the coverage of the media, trying to criminalize the former president and trying to influence the public opinion against Lula. This has been very strong in Brazil. The same has been happening about Venezuela. One of the things that the media in Brazil is trying to use against the Bolivarian revolution is to use the terms of Venezuelan refugees in north Brazil, using the idea, trying to influence the public opinion in Brazil that the Venezuelan regime is using the people, and the people are...
Cassia, thank you so much for your information. We will get back to you as soon as we can. Now, the production says we are going live with Tibisay Lucena.
En Distrito Capital, que tiene un punto político en las puertas. Ahí corren imágenes por las redes sociales.
No tengo nada.
Chequeamos y hacemos la revisión. Resulta que han sido fotografías.
It turns out there have been photographs of the simulation process or another electoral process, but not this one. And so we are very aware, we're very vigilant, and we have told to everyone who has showed us their concern that you make sure the process is transparent and that all presidential candidates have access to the rectors. And so we will keep up with a telephone contact with our director and other authorities in order to provide attention to all the denouncements that have been made. All the things we have received, we have gone to verify, and all of these processes have been duly managed. I will ask, however, to ask for the campaign commandos, and I will have to remind them also that all of those involved, that as it is supposed to be established, as it is said in the agreements, as Simón Bolívar mentioned, all the processes must be respected. The 200-yard line must be respected. Whether they are true or not, here we have an agreement here, and we're doing everything within our grasp to make sure that these denouncements are addressed and that these lines, 200 yards, do not exist anymore. And here we have our collaborator Ceballos. We are having close monitoring in order to check and ensure that the Plan República is being implemented. It has also been reviewed on a national scale to establish a perimeter on a national level to make sure that all measures are being complied with. We are correcting them as well. With the vote and with whether these denouncements are right or not, we will address these concerns. And anywhere in our territory, the people or the person who is assisting several people to a single elector or a single voter, we know that this is against the law, that is forbidden, and the table members have a responsibility to report that this is happening. We have the denouncement, that is the specific denouncement that has come from the municipality of San Francisco. And as I've said, we are in the reviewing process. This is a denouncement that has been addressed. It is very well specified, and we can go to the site and verify whether it is true or not. Even if it is a single case, it is forbidden by the law, and we would ask all the voters and all involved that you cannot accompany several voters into their voting booth. That is forbidden by the law. For all persons with some type of discapacity or a disability, or whether they are elderly population. And so, the table members have a responsibility with the party. The electorate has a responsibility as well to report it. If you see that there is a single person that is accompanying several voters, they also have a responsibility to participate in the process of denouncing, so that this conduct may be stopped. It is very well established in the voting table what is a procedure we must follow in order to vote correctly. And again, these are probably very punctual cases. We have been verifying these announcements, and we are taking corrective measures and actions. And so now we are also making a follow-up to and a call to all campaign commandos to ensure that the process is carried out in the utmost tranquility, and that the process of electing the fate of this country is done in peace. So in each of the electoral tables, as well as other sites for our authorities, I would ask that they collect all the announcements and let us know as quickly as they can, so that we may take the corrective measures that apply. So once again, I will call on all campaign commanders to ensure that the agreements that were approved by the National Council of the electorate, again, this is not an agreement that was signed and approved with other authorities. It is a compromise with Venezuela, with the people of Venezuela, and we must all collaborate. Please collaborate with this process so that it may happen in a tranquil and peaceful manner. Aside from these, we have no other novelties and no other news to comment on. We will now begin our cycle of four questions. Good afternoon, President. I would like to ask how many councils in Venezuela are receiving this denouncement, and whether I would ask you if you think that the Venezuelan people are ratifying their elections and their exercise of the right to vote. And finally, what is your opinion of the cooperation of international entities up to this point? Well, all accompanying entities you have seen throughout the lens and throughout the cameras, they're doing their rounds. They're going through several voting centers here at the capital district, as well as different regions and different states of the country. Regarding the participation, we've said it many times, this is an act of education that is very simple. The capital district awaits and is expecting everything to make sure that everything is going quickly. It is flowing quite rapidly. It happens when we select a single candidate. We have to remind the voters' position to vote for the preferred candidate, and also make sure to check the box for the party of this candidate. And so that when the voting procedure begins, it can go by rather quickly. And so the district attorney's office and the DA has informed us regarding this mechanism in order to attend quickly everything that has to do with electoral felonies. Denouncements are arriving very quickly. They normally occur in many electoral processes. What we can guarantee, however, is that the amount and number of denouncements that we've had has been in very low numbers compared to other electoral processes. Fabiana Ortega, Globovisión. Good afternoon. A couple of minutes ago, the candidate Henry Falcón made a series of denouncements, including the installation of so-called red spots within a 200-yard perimeter from electoral centers, as well as the offer for resources if presenting the ID known as Cara de la Patria. So these processes would be in violation of the agreement. And he also said that he also mentioned that there was pressure for the disavowing of certain witnesses, so which would be the measures to take in this situation. And at this hour, you have what would be the table constitution as those of this moment. Could you give us some news regarding the outside of the country? Votes from abroad has been occurring for several hours, and the opening of said tables in abroad have been going for some time. Regarding the Falcón's announcements, we have done this quite a bit we have addressed these concerns with our campaign commanders. There is a particular issue, is that a machine is opening or not opening, or that the table does not allow for quick access or not, but the denouncements have to do with political points that have been specific. Now we have to review them, and those have been addressed as well. Those would be 4 denouncements in Barquisimeto, 11 of them in Lara, which had been attended and absolved, and 1 in the capital district. All the denouncements are being managed. They also made the denouncement of what is the assisted voting.
Lucena, head of the CNE, giving us updates on today's elections. Now let's try to go back to our correspondent Ian Bruce in Caracas. Ian, are you there?
Hello, Steffi. Yes, so as we saw there, the president of the National Electoral Council, Tibisay Lucena, has just been making some declarations. She said the process has gone extremely smoothly, apart from some very minor incidents, which will be absolutely normal. She said the day was developing exactly as they'd expected, with in a good atmosphere and a very peaceful way. Now, to talk more about the importance of this election and how it's going, I'm joined by Roy Chatterton. He is the former Venezuelan ambassador to the Organization of American States and the former foreign minister. Mr. Chatterton, what's your impression of the day so far?
It's midday in Venezuela. Participation has been very good, still improving, still a lot of people coming in. I presume the final result will be wonderful, which is the normal in this Venezuelan Bolivarian democracy. This is the umpteenth time the Venezuelan democracy has been subject to a challenge, and for the umpteenth time we are going to win. I mean the Bolivarian forces. But with the participation of the Venezuelan opposition in this kind of event, we are going to prove once more the strength of our democracy, of our pays, in spite of all the international aggression against or attempt to lynch our country by countries led by what I will call a bully. And some tamed Latin American and European countries, including which is the chief of the foreign chief of the European Union.
Mr. Chatterton, President Maduro has said that, of course, it's very important after the elections to address the economic problems, but he's also called for a broad national dialogue, possibly even new talks in the Dominican Republic with the opposition. You were involved in the last round of talks with the opposition in the Dominican Republic. Do you think that's possible, a new round of talks with the opposition?
They intend to do so, yes, once again, because President Maduro, I repeat the word umpteen time, have been trying to go along with the dialogue with the opposition and to bring peace back to our country. But normalcy is the word of the day. And I presume, since some opposition leaders and movement are participating in this effort, we trust some of these people in the opposition, that we trust that they will participate again in the dialogue process.
But do you think it would be the same kind of dialogue you had in Santo Domingo before, or would it be a different kind of process? How might that happen?
That's a very good question.
In the Dominican Republic, and he told us that he thinks it is a good time to try and restart that dialogue, as President Nicolas Maduro has promised, if he wins these elections today.
Ian, thank you so much for your information. We'll get back to you throughout the day. And we've come to the end of this news brief. These and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.
Venezuela chooses its government's plan for the next 6 years. On this 20th of May, more than 20 million Venezuelans have been summoned to cast their vote. Telesur will be present to inform you in detail about this presidential election day. Enjoy our special program and follow minute by minute the developments of this election.